Assalamu alaikum dear students. This is unit number 7, and in unit number 7 the first portion of this unit is concerned with the function of the language, and in function of language we are going to discuss today to ask permission and to give permission or to refuse permission. ठीक है, तो obviously asking for something and allowing it and denying it is the part of everyday life. Every day we are forced to ask, or we are forced to seek permission of our elders to do something, and there are many times that we are granted permission. However, there are some times that we are refused permission. So billions of time in a day around the globe, this asking for permission and this granting permission and refusing permission, it is going on. So now the question is that how do we ask for permission? Obviously there are many expressions that we could use. We have also learned the modal verbs in the previous chapters, and there are obviously certain modal verbs. For example, can or may. These two modal verbs, they can be used to seek permission or to ask for permission of some individual. So below are given some expressions that we can use to seek to ask permission. The first expression is, can I ask you a question? Now this is the modal verb can that we have already learned in the section of the modal verbs. May I have a piece of paper? Again, this is a modal verb that we have learned in the section of the modal verbs. Could I go out and make a phone call? Again, a modal verb. It is the past form of can. Do you mind if I smoke? Now, this is a proper expression for asking permission. ठीक है, या फिर seeking permission. Do you mind? Do you mind if I smoke? Would you mind if I ask you something? Is it okay if I sit here? Now, this is the second and the third expressions, proper expressions of the language as I call them. Do you mind? Would you mind? Is it okay if I sit here? Would it be alright if I borrowed your pen? Would it be alright? So modal verbs obviously can, may, and could are those modal verbs that we have already learned. Okay, we know that these words, they are used to ask permission, they perform various functions in the language. But the expressions of the language in the last four sentences are the things that you need to keep in your mind in order to bring variety of expressions into your everyday language. Okay, now when we ask permission, the other individual who is sitting on the other side is either going to give permission or he is going to refuse permission. So if he has to give you permission, he can use the following expressions. Sure, go ahead. Certainly, you can do this. Certainly, you can do that. Certainly, you can go there. Certainly, you can have my lunch. मतलब कि many expressions are there that could be used. No problem. No problem. You can use my pen. All right. It's all right. You can sit here. It's all right. You can have my lunch. अच्छा, no, of course not जो है expression, it has also been used to give permission. Apparently it looks as if it is the expression that can be used to refuse permission. However, if we look at the sentences written above, or if we recall the sentences written above, there was a sentence, would you mind? There was a sentence, would you mind if I ask you something? So in answer to that particular question, this individual is asking, no, of course not. It means that no, of course not, I am not going to mind, you can ask me any question. Okay, but is it okay if I sit here? Of course, yes, you can sit here. Okay? All these expressions are there that can be used to ask permission, or they can be used to refuse permission. Sorry, granting permission. Now we are going to have a look at the expressions that we can use to refuse permission. Okay, I would rather you didn't. सबसे पहला, the first expression that we are going to learn is I would rather you didn't. Sorry, no. Yes, I do mind. When you ask someone, would you mind moving a bit, and he says, yes, I do mind, it means that that individual wants to be left alone and he doesn't want to be disturbed. So you should not disturb him, you should rather leave him alone. In the dialogue written below, there are a few more expressions that you could use while seeking permission. Okay, so please read the dialogue with me. Do you mind if I use your computer? Yes, of course, please help yourself. Yes, of course, please help yourself. It means that yes, you can do whatever you wish to do. May I use your computer for an hour? By all means, take your time. By all means, take your time. It means that yes, you can use it for however long you wish to use it. Now please focus on the dialogue that is given here for refusing permission. Now, mm, as we are all well aware of the fact that refusing permission is not an easy thing. No? When someone comes to you and asks you something and you say no, you can't, then it is quite difficult, and sometimes you feel embarrassed that you have refused permission. However, you need to have certain expressions with you that you can use to refuse permission to the individual who is seeking your permission. So let us have a look at the dialogue. Asking and refusing permission. Do you mind if I use your computer? I do mind. It's very expensive equipment. Now that is one way of refusing permission, and it looks as if it is a rude way of refusing permission. Can I use your computer? No, you can't. I'm working. That is a bit polite, as the reason for not allowing you is acceptable, as the computer is busy and the individual who owns the computer is working on that computer. That is why he has refused, so you will understand his situation and you will not mind at all. Okay, while the above expression, I do mind, it's very expensive equipment. Obviously, in that sort of case, you are going to mind and you are going to have a grudge against that individual. And now, whenever he is going to come to you and ask for something from you, you are obviously going to refuse to that individual. So, as I already have told you that refusing permission, it can be very tricky, and if the permission is refused in the rough and the abrupt manner, the other person will probably feel very hurt and insulted. So it could result in losing a relationship, it could result in losing an acquaintance. So you should always find a polite way to refuse permission. A friendlier way to refuse permission is to use the phrase, I would rather you didn't because I am doing an important work at the moment. Now this is the way, this is a sentence, I would rather you didn't because I'm doing an important work at the moment. This is the way to politely refuse something. Why? Because you have explained that why you cannot allow that individual to use your computer or to use your mobile or whatever equipment he has asked you to use. Okay, because you have explained the reason, because you have given him the reason that this is the reason uh, because of which I will not allow you to use my computer. Now the other person is supposed to understand it and he's not going to mind it. Now there is another dialogue which will familiarize you with furthermore expressions that you can use to refuse permission in a friendly way. So individual A is asking, it's a bit too hot, do you mind if I open the window? B says, well, I would rather you didn't. You see, it's summer and you might get a lot of insects coming in, but I will switch on the air conditioner if you like. Now, that is a polite way to refuse permission. You have refused him or her, and you have also explained the reason, and you have also offered an alternative. Now, this is the best way to refuse the permission, that if you are refusing somebody, explain the reason and point that individuals in or individual in the alternative direction, that what else could be done. Is it okay if I smoke? Well, I rather you didn't smoke in the house. Do you think you could go outside and smoke? You have provided an alternative. So alternatives are very important to maintain your relationship when you are refusing permission. Do you mind if I play some music? Well, I would rather you didn't just now. I need to do some work on the computer. I'll be finished in an hour, though if you don't mind waiting. Okay? So this explanation is all that you need to do, that in order to refuse permission in the very polite manner. So while you are refusing permission to somebody, there are certain hesitation phrases that you can add to your sentences. These hesitation phrases mean that you are thinking something. Okay, you say, well, okay, let me think. Please don't do this because I have to do this. Okay. So when you hesitate a bit, it means that you have given complete thought, you have thought about the situation, and you have thought about every possibility, and the situation is really tight, and you are unable to help the individual. Okay. So you could use phrases like this: I would rather you didn't. Give a reason. So the reason, they offer an alternative. I'll switch on the air conditioner if you like, as in the example that we have discussed about refusing to open the window of the car. So now there is an exercise or activity for you that you have to perform in order to show that whether you have learned how to refuse permission or not. Okay. So when you are going to refuse permission, you are going to add hesitation phrase. These hesitation phrases include actually, well, and to tell you the truth. Okay, these are three hesitation phrases: actually, well, and to tell you the truth. Now you have to use a hesitation phrase, and you have to refuse that I rather you didn't, उसके बाद, and you have to give the reason that why you are not going to allow your friend to do whatever he wants to do. Okay, the first situation we have is, do you mind if I invite some friends here tonight? So we are going to say well, and then so we are going to refuse permission by saying well, and then a bit of hesitation. Three dots means, well, you're thinking something. Okay, a good reason for refusal: because my sister is going to visit tonight. Okay, so now we have explained the reason, and the other person, he understands, so he'll not mind it at all. Okay, do you mind if I take your car tonight? So you are going to say actually, then there are two three dots, it means that you're thinking something. Then you are going to say that I would rather you didn't, because I have a meeting with my supervisor, and I need car to go and see him. Okay, so now you have given a proper reason again, and the individual on the other side who's asking you to give him permission to use your car, he's not going to mind at all. He knows that you have an important meeting to attend. Okay, so this is the way that we give permission or we refuse permission to the individuals. Now there is another exercise, please have a look at it. You have been given number of different expressions, and you have to identify that which expression or which sentence can be used for which function, that whether it is used to ask permission or it is used to uh, grant permission or it has been used to refuse permission. So let us have a look at the first sentence. Can you, sorry, can I take your car to work tomorrow? So it is asking for permission. You can take the big bag as well if you like. It is granting permission. Can I bring my bike inside? It is asking permission. Of course you can. There is plenty of space. Again, an expression that is used to grant permission. Would it be alright if I turn the radio off? Asking permission. May I take bath in your bathroom? Asking permission. Sure, go right ahead. There is plenty of hot water. Granting permission. Do you mind if I open a window? Asking permission. May I use the phone? Asking permission. Guests may only use the dining room after 6:30. So it is granting permission with certain condition. Is there any more bread? It is inquiring or seeking permission. Help yourself, it's in the kitchen. It is granting permission. Could I stay the night at Amna's? Asking permission. I don't see why not, so long as you are home before lunch tomorrow. It is granting permission. So now here is a situation in front of you. It is a situation where you have to generate sentences. These sentences are almost on the pattern of your exam. So it is like borrow some money. If you are going to borrow some money from your friend, how are you going to ask him to give you the money? Then how you are going to grant permission and how you are going to refuse permission. So we are going to do first two of these situations so that you can understand and you can see that why and how this thing it could be done in exam. So let us have asking for permission. We can use, can I borrow some money from you? Granting permission? Yeah, sure. How much do you need? Okay. Refusing permission. Uh, I would rather you didn't. My budget is very tight these days. Okay. Again, read your newspaper. Do you mind if I read your newspaper? No, I don't. It is used to give permission. You can have it as long as you need. And if we have to refuse permission, you're going to say, yes, I do mind. I have to read it myself first. Okay. So I cannot allow you to have my Newspaper. So now this is the pattern, this is the way that you are going to adopt in your exam, and you are going to the expressions that you are going to use for asking permission, for granting permission, and for refusing permission. So that would be all for asking permission, granting permission, and refusing permission. There are a couple of more activities in your book, and I hope that you could do them on your own. And certainly, you are going to do them, you will do them, so that you can have more practice of these expressions. So, thank you so much for listening. Allah Hafiz.